Hi, this is Kimmortal, and you're listening to When We See Each Other.
Hello, world. My name is Nikkiesha McLeod, and you're listening to When We See Each Other, presented by Stereoactive Media. When We See Each Other is a podcast that focuses on music and art by BIPOC, queer, trans, and non binary artists, as well as artists I've met and known for some time. In this episode, we're interviewing queer, non-binary Filipino-Canadian musician, singer-songwriter, and visual artist Kimmortal. First, we'll play Kim's very necessary track,
Here we
Stop
go.
Business as Usual. Then we'll jump right into the interview. Here we go.
Business. I don't wanna write a record, I wanna reflect the time. Stop business as usual, stop the genocide. I don't wanna write a record, I wanna reflect the time. Stop business as usual, stop the genocide. I don't wanna write a record, I wanna reflect the time. Stop business as usual, stop the genocide. I don't wanna write a record, I wanna reflect the time. Stop business. I don't wanna write a banger, I wanna reflect the time. Stop business as usual, stop the genocide. It's land back from Philippines to Palestine. It's time to uprise till we're all free. Fuck individualism, this is collective wisdom. No more consumerism, tune into global rhythms. We make the revolution irresistible. Leaning on each other, holding them accountable. They don't give a fuck about us, but we will still talk shit. We designing graphics, we reciting telephone scripts. We got our receipts, local archivists. We flooding inbox, the mayor's office. We calling his shit, don't be complicit. We boost the info, and we bear witness. We taking our lead from indigenous. We unstoppable, we won't stay silent. I don't wanna write a record, I wanna reflect the time. Stop business as usual, stop the genocide. I don't wanna write a record, I wanna reflect the time. Stop business as usual, stop the genocide. I don't wanna write a record, I wanna reflect the time. Stop business as usual, stop the genocide. I don't wanna write a record, I wanna reflect the time. Stop business. Kafia's on the street, traffic blockage. A politician sips his cocktail and funds the rockets. We yelling ceasefire, your hands got blood in them. He licks his fingers, calls on his minions. They turning humans into robot cops. Slaves to empires, brains whitewashed. They put whiteness in religious laws. Gave them rights to enslave, mass graves, land theft, prison jobs. Real loves and decolonization. Total liberation of our nation. Stop the killings and the occupation. Changing, using radical imagination. Together we're amazing. I don't wanna write a record, I wanna reflect the time. Stop business as usual, stop the genocide. I don't wanna write a record, I wanna reflect the time. Stop business.
Hi, Kim. Welcome to When We See Each Other. So glad to have you here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And how are you doing today? How is fall treating you?
Oh, well, the fall is my favorite season.
Really?
Yeah, it's like Halloween season, like October is
Yeah.
so mysterious and magical. And then I'm a Sagittarius, so my birthday just passed. So, yeah, fall, winter, it's my favorite.
Really? Yeah. Oh my
How
God.
you?
So happy belated birthday. I'm also a Sagittarius.
Yay!
Yes. My birthday was on Monday. So yeah, so this is awesome. And I agree. That is definitely a great reason to love fall and winter. Your born day is definitely important.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to first start off by asking what inspired you to start making music?
I usually tell people that it all started in grade 7. I stole my sister's acoustic guitar and I taught myself how to play Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer.
Oh my God. Wow.
And
You taught yourself
yeah,
that.
I taught
Wow.
myself it. I think I was
Wow.
reading tabs at some point. Um But before that, I also have a glimpse of when I was 6 years old. Um, my parents who I grew up kinda religious, there was a keychain cross that I had, and it had, like, a Bible verse or whatever, or, like, a poem or something, and I remember I just, like, turned that into a song mixed with
Wow.
the lyrics of Backstreet Boys and Spice Girls and Brandy.
What?
So I,
Oh my
like
god.
I,
That's
like
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, and then I performed it in front of my sister and brother. I'm a middle
Mhm.
child, and I was like,
Okay.
"Hey, check out the song that I just put together," and it was just like it was called, like, Dark Angel or something.
Dark Angel. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I guess I've been interested in lyrics since a young age, and just, like,
Mhm.
knowing that I can put words together and sing them
Mhm.
and, like, create meaning out of that is so interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. So would you say, like, you were first a poet and then you moved into, um, other things, like combining that with music, with, musical instruments and sound?
Mm, I think, I was always a journaler because when I was young, I was quiet and, and usually I would express myself through theater or, like, visual art, so I was very creative, and it was actually the art of word that came later. I would say in my 20s is when I started actually performing at open mics, um, but I kind of, like, kept my music making, private. I remember when I was in grade 10, I was at my friend's place, and there was a guitar, and I started playing the guitar, and then I had my friends turn around and face the wall, and then I performed one of my first songs to them. So I was quite, shy when it came to that. But yeah, I've always been like a journaler, just writing, trying to figure out what I thought in my head.
Mhm. Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. So do you remember your first song?
Yeah, I do. I really do. It's
Okay.
it's a
Can you
newer
tell us a
one.
little bit about that?
Yeah, it goes the first verse goes, "The world hates me, I don't know who I am. They pushed me over, I forgot how to stand. Rocks in their angry fists, ready to hurl. Run to me, shield me, share the pain in my world." Something like that?
Wow.
Yeah, that's like it was a very, like, emo track that I that
Yeah.
I, yeah, it's kind of embarrassing, but when I share that
No.
yeah.
Why would you say it's embarrassing?
It's kind of it's very much, like, dark, but that's a huge part of my writing, is, like, I love that, like, going dark with my
Yeah.
lyrics.
Like, I mean, I'm kinda a little bit of dark too, and I appreciate darkness because
Me
then you
too.
can see the stars.
Yes.
So that saying, so, I appreciate it. And so how old were you when you wrote the song?
I was 15.
15. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and that
something.
song, the lyrics went in my sketchbook, and I had a drawing with it of, like, a guy falling into a dark pit, and I remember I his face was, like, so pale, and yeah, my sketchbook was my home, like, throughout high school. I was always in the art room,
Mhm.
and yeah.
So you draw as well?
Yeah, actually, I would say I was drawing before I was making music, because my dad is, or I watched my dad paint with charcoal, from a young age, because he had a charcoal portrait business in, Manila before he immigrated to Canada, and then for the first, like, 7 years of my life 7 years of my life, he ran a portrait business, and so I was always drawing beside him.
Wow. So based on that, so are both your parents artists?
They're not practicing artists currently, like, my dad stopped, with his charcoal portraits after he went full-time to work as a custodian at the school I was going to, and so there's that, but he always sang, and visual art was, like, big to him, so he'd always be singing in the kitchen,
Mm,
and, my mom is I would say she's quite powerful with her voice, so I get my voice from my mom.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. So can you talk a little bit more about how, how your parents as artists basically influenced you? You would say that they definitely influenced your art, your interest in the arts, and then also pursuing it. Correct?
Yeah, I don't think they expected that I would pursue it full time, but it
Mm-hmm.
was, such a it was their kind of their pride. So, like, I would perform at, like, church musicals, and, like, I went to, like, a private Christian school, and I played the trumpet, and there were, like,
What?
band plays and stuff. Yeah, so, like, a lot of it was, like 'cause, like so my parents are Filipino immigrants, and, like, a lot of Filipino immigrant communities find community in a new country through church. So it's,
Mm,
like,
yeah.
it was a lot of dressing up on Sundays and then, like, performing over the holidays and, like, make your mom or dad proud, perform in front of them at, like, family reunions. Like and it was like, "Oh, my kids, they're performing," and it was like their pride. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of my beginning, like, my roots, and then I was like, "Oh, like, this art thing, I have these, like, skills," but I started turning to it for outletting. I feel like that shift was, like, high school.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So so did you get any formal training in any of well, I assume you did because you started playing the trumpet for your church, right? So did you get any formal training in music? I believe you have.
I don't have any formal training in music. Like, I still don't know what I play on the piano or the guitar, really, like, maybe just basic shapes. I'm very visual, and so I remember, like, how my hand was placed on the strings or, like, the shape it made on the keys. So I'm very, like, intuitive in my approach to music, but I did go to university for visual arts and art history.
Oh,
So that, you know, is formal, but I feel like, I'm trying to learn music theory. Like, I'm like, "Oh, I'm a musician now, this is my career." And so I'm like and I work with other musicians, so it doesn't hurt to learn theory, but I'm kinda like, I kinda don't really need it sometimes. I'm just like it's what I feel, and it's like my words lead the work that I'm doing, and I feel like that's the most important thing. So I think I'm trying to learn as I go, but I'm not, like, pushing it on myself.
yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I feel like sometimes like, that was one of my issues when I was, like, considering, going to college, should I go into a music program? And then I felt like that would have stifled, like, my internal parts around how I create music. Like, I felt like it would just corrupt the soulness of it. I don't know if you felt that way too?
Totally, so I actually kind of fear that happening if I, like,
Yeah.
learn now and I just get obsessive about it. I'm afraid I'll sway the other way, but I'm kind of I like, to check your progress as a musician is, like, you're growing. If I'm growing, great, but I like to, I like learning. I'm sure you know as a Sagittarius, it's just like, if it's sparking my brain, I wanna learn it, but then I have so many interests. So I'm like, I'll learn about it a little bit, and then I might get bored, and then I'll just move on. So it's like what I need in the moment. And I'm like, "Okay, cool."
Yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. I can totally relate to that. That totally resonates with me. So one of the things that I love about your work is that it cannot be pigeonholed into any particular genre. And it can be hip hop, it can be R&B, it could be soul. Is that intentional?
Mm, yeah, it's very intentional. Like, the first rapper I ever heard was Tupac. The track Changes that my cousin introduced me to, and so I feel like my lyricism is what sometimes it's like you have a piece and you have, like, words, and it's like, okay, whatever genre is, like, gonna push that message or that forward, um, it will be that genre. I feel like once I get to the drawing board and I put the feeling of the track down. Like, I literally was just producing, and I was, like, making the track, and I was like, "Okay, I want to just, like, express myself. I want to, like I want to express rage." Like,
Mm,
I want to, like, have my words hit. And
mhm.
so, I was listening to rap metal before that, and so I was like, what I was just listening to influences what I create, and it matches, like, the feeling I want to push forward, and so I would say, yeah, it is intentional. It's intentional, but I also try my best to listen to what sounds good to me, and, um, I just try to be authentic to what I like in my head and make it my own. So I tried to, bring elements of like hip hop, but then I'm like, oh, I really like the sonic texture of this sound. I'm gonna like place it here and like disrupt this idea of like a song has to be a format, like A B A
Mm,
B, like
mhm,
just like break it up and
mhm.
go somewhere else. I really like that about music and songs I've been listening to these days. It's like it breaks this format. And I'm like, "Wow, you can do that? Okay,
Yeah,
cool." So,
yeah. Totally, totally. It's very freeing, right? In a sense, it's almost like you're just like a bird just flying to a new place. At least,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, so, yeah, I totally hear you on that. So that kinda just brings me to my next question about your process, when you're creating. Is it, like, do you just have, maybe you hear a lyric, or maybe you hear you hear a melody first, and then you go from there? Like, how do you approach your process, of creating music, creating songs?
I can speak for how I'm doing it these days. Well, I was scrolling on Instagram, and then there was, like, a poem on that was written out. I was like, "Oh, wow, that poem sums up, like, exactly what I've been thinking about."
Mhm,
And then I'll just, like, highlight, like, 2 lines from that, and then I'll just stare at those lines, and then I'll be like, "Oh, I wanna, like, have this chanted," or, like, "I wanna, like, repeat this." Um, and then it might become a song, it might not. And, yeah, that's how I've been doing it. Like, I realize the internet is actually like, what I see on the internet influences what I write.
mm,
And I don't think I've ever really, uh, like, brought that up, like, how much of my scrolling has an
mhm.
effect on what I create.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that being influential, well, I think I take it with a grain of salt because it's just like, but I do hear you on how it could be like impactful, like, scrolling through the internet. But then I also think about like how it can, really put you in a really, terrible mindset.
Yeah,
But then you can also write a song about that.
totally.
So,
Absolutely.
so there's that. But yeah, I totally hear you on that. So basically you get your sort of like you get your inspiration from reading other content online. And then what do you do? Then you just like maybe grab a guitar, or do you just start rapping, or do you start
Mm.
singing? Do you start singing something?
What I've been doing recently is I taught myself how to produce on Ableton. I just watched a lot of, like, videos,
Mhm.
and, I have this program called Splice, and on Splice, you can, like, search up, like, sub bass in the key of G minor,
Mm.
and so I just, like, typed that, and then I found this little tidbit of a loop, and then I was like, "This is how I feel." I feel, like, really ragey and angsty.
Mhm.
The current topic in my head is, like, how to cope in this time of genocide as an artist,
Yeah.
and, like, what does it mean to be an artist,
Mhm.
and so I'm like, the feeling that I'm feeling is, like, angst, and I'm like, "Wow, the world is really revealing itself," like,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
white supremacy is, like, the background, the foundation of the nations, quote. It's really, like, coming up, and I'm like and f people feel it, there's, like, fear, there's it's like it's scary. It's scary out there, and I feel that feeling, especially now in the fall and the winter.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and it's like what you were saying about, darkness is like, we need darkness. We need to acknowledge darkness to see the light,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, I'm so creative in a time of darkness, but
Yeah.
it's more
Yeah.
so like, I need to, like, talk about these shadows.
Right.
So, yeah, so I was on Splice and I found this sub bass that was, like, really grimy. Like
Mhm.
like, it's like the sound of, like that brings your body closer to the ground, and you're just like, "Ah." It's like
Yeah.
that, and then
Yeah.
I just, like, looped it, and I was like, "Okay, it's I want to I want to, um, rage in my voice." So I was like, "It's not slow, it's faster." And then I started making this loop with the background where I'm just like, "Ah," and
Wow.
it's just looped. So it's a sub bass, and it's that, and then I started writing it with the ly with, lyrics that I found when I wrote in 2017. So
Wow.
I was like, "Oh my god, this is like the rhythm of it is like, duh, 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 duh," and I was like, "Oh," and then I started rapping a poem that I never released in that I wrote in 2017. I found it in my old Gmail notes, and then I was like, "Oh, these 4 lines work," and then I was like, "Those 4 lines work," and it was like a collage. And then I was like, "Oh my god, it's a song."
Yes. Yes. I love that. I love that. That is so amazing. Wow, I love that so much. So yeah, that's just really beautiful because it's just like I feel like it's a continuum that you just described right there, like going back to what you wrote in 2000, in 2017, and then incorporating it into this moment right now in the present, and then adding like that, adding another layer to it. So, and then it also just reminds me too of like how things never are never really done or finished. like a song is never really complete. At least I don't really believe that. I feel like it's always there to transform into something else. Um, so yeah, this that was so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. I'm also, like, kind of trying to challenge myself to, like, finish what I started because so many artists, it's just, like, we all have, like, all these unfinished pieces, but I'm
Yeah,
kind of, like, trying to push myself to be like, "Okay, at the end of this session of creating, just, like, try to bring it to a place where it's kinda complete." And, like, for me, that was, like, just leaving, 12 bars at the end of the track without lyrics so that after I can upload the track, re-listen to what I created, and then maybe write a new verse of the present of where I'm at right now.
right, right.
But yeah, I do agree, like, bringing things from the past and how does it relate to now is, like, so wild. That's, like,
Yeah,
my favorite part. It's like, "Whoa,
yeah,
how."
exactly.
I love that part.
Yeah, totally. All right, so I'm just gonna switch gears here, but I'm loving. I love that. Talking about that. So stop business as usual. I have been. I'm obsessed about this song. It's on heavy rotation on my phone. I listen to it all the time. I love this
Thank
song so
you.
much. I feel very connected to it. It speaks a lot, and it's so relevant for right now. So I wanted to know what inspired that song. I want you to tell us like what made you decide, yes, I'm gonna write this song, and also just talk a little bit about the process of creating it.
Okay, yeah, totally. Stop business as usual. I wrote it maybe 3 weeks after October the 7th last year,
Mhm.
and, I was scrolling, so I was learning a lot about, the history of Palestine on Instagram, and what was happening was just the most treacherous photos and videos that are continuing to play on Instagram for me, and, there's this one photo of these they looked like queer Asians on a bridge, and they were, stopping traffic,
Mhm.
and, this was somewhere in the States. I don't know where exactly, but, they had the what are those called? They're like cylinders, uh, chained on their hands to, like so that they're all linked.
Mhm.
So a line of them, and then on one tube, it said "fuck," and then on the other tube, it said "individualism,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I was like, "Whoa." And this was also during a time when, a lot of artists were like, "Oh, who's speaking up? Who's not speaking up? Like, who are the organizations that, you know, are taking a stand?"
Mm.
And then so that question of like, "Okay, what are artists' roles right now?" And then I
Mhm.
saw that photo, and it was like that that was so powerful to see. Um, and then so at that time, I was downloading so much information, and I was like, you know, I went on Ableton again, and I started humming. I started, like, singing, humming, and the melody of the humming was, a literal sample of a track by Gabriel Teodros, who is an incredible MC based in Seattle, MC and activist, and, he has this song that I was listening to called "Light Attracts Light and Everything Else Too." And in that track, Gabriel Teodros talks about how, as an artist, he is not trying to function within the industry. He's that's not his goals. His goals is like outside of that, and it's like you have to create your own blueprint as an artist. And I was like listening to that, and then I started humming something similar to that track, and then I was like, "Oh, I really like this." I made a layer of it so it sounded like a choir, sped it up, and I put boom bap beats on it, and then I started writing the hook, and the hook was stop business as usual, stop the genocide.
Mhm.
And then, at the time too, I was finding a lot of direction from Nina Simone's, I wanna reflect the times. So I
Yeah.
was like, "Okay, that's the artist role."
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Okay, let's make a hook out of this." And then I started writing the verses, and, like, honestly, the verses are just, like, glimpses of my community in East Vancouver,
Mhm.
like, artists writing scripts of, like, calling the mayor, read the
Mhm.
script, like, make posters, you know, what I was seeing, basically.
Right.
And, yeah, the song wrote itself, and then the second verse was, like, history. I wanted to touch on history.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's an amazing song, and I feel like it reflects everything that we're going through right now, and it highlights the importance of uplifting people who are marginalized, people who are under attack, uplifting their voices. And so I really appreciate the fact that you created this song. Like, seriously,
Thank you, I'm
I
so
think,
happy it reached you.
yeah, like when I heard it the first time, I was like, "Yep, I have to listen to this song. Yes, this is it right here." So I just wanted to know also, like, how does Stop Business differ from your past works?
Mm. The album that I released before Stop Business as Usual is Shoebox, and my album before that, X Marks the Swirl. So a lot of my albums have been conceptual. Um, there's a whole narrative to each album, but with Stop Business as Usual, it's very much like reflect the times, talk about what's happening right now.
Mhm.
Um, it's not about escapism. It's like look at what's in front of you and talk about it, which is like, the hip hop that I grew up listening to
Yeah.
is, like, people talking about their communities.
Mhm.
It really flowed out of me because it's one of my biggest influences is, like, boom bap, like, a lot of the hip hop coming out of, like, Seattle, Vancouver, like, East Vancouver poets. Um, so yeah, it differs in that way where I was very much like, "I'm gonna rap about this."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So it was very intentional. It was very like,
Mhm.
yeah, this is what I'm gonna focus on and this is what I'm gonna talk about. So you brought up Shoebox and I also really felt connected to that album and in particular the track Run. To me that sounded like a discussion about generational trauma. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um,
You're right.
yeah. So
You
yeah,
heard it.
like
You felt it. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I heard it and I totally felt it. And did you feel this was important for you as an artist to discuss, to, get into, to explore on, especially in terms of like colonialism and white supremacy? Like how do you see generational trauma fitting into those things?
Run is a song that has been in my body for, like, 10 years. So that song, I always was like, "This song is my most important song that I've ever written," I feel, because it was a lot of, like, purging, like, family stuff, like, purging it out. And, yeah, I'm definitely, like, I would say the only person in my family that I know of that is speaking about stuff, like, in my whole ancestral line. Like, I'm the first on Turtle Island, my family here, and, I'm, like, politicized, like, I'm a voice of dissent, and it's painful to have that, role, that burden, but it's also a space of freedom that, is uncomfortable but is, like, amazing. So, um, I found it important for me to release it in a container. So Shoebox was a container because if I just released that song, it would just be trauma. So I needed to release it in a container that was also about queer trans joy and is also about um pain because it holds it. And that song was one of my biggest learning curves because I didn't know how to end the song because there's no happy ending. And when you talk about, family trauma, it's like, and we all lived happily ever after. Like, how do you end
Right,
how do you end the song, right?
right.
So, yeah, how I ended that song, I remember one night I just was listening to the song, and then I had my mic in front of me, and I was like, "I'm gonna scream at the end of the song." So I just, like, I s I it sounded like a wail, and it felt like my ancestors speaking through, and it was just like they were coming out, and I was like, "This is where it is. This is where it ends. This is what it is." And it's a part of my voice, and it's a part of everything. And what I mean is, like, that grief is such a it's a portal. I know that's a quote from someone, but grief is a portal, and it also, like, is like the texture. It's like it's so like, grief is like it's like it's like fuel. It's like potent. It's like in all my work. So, um, I found it important to end that song with a chorus of wailing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah, that completely makes sense. It completely makes sense. In terms of like hearing the pain, hearing the grief, not like in words, but like in sonic waves, understanding it in that language. Um, because sometimes that's the only language that you have when you've experienced grief is to wail, as you said. So yeah, that totally resonates. All right. So I know that you come from an immigrant background. Your parents are immigrants. Um, and I wanted to know, like, how does your music connect with being? And this is just a continuation to what you were just saying about growing up queer and also Filipino in Canada. So, how does your music connect with being a queer non binary Filipino? How has it been like being a queer non binary Filipino Canadian artist in the music industry? How has that been for you?
Mm, yeah. The story that's coming up for me right now is, like, when I recorded my first album, and
Mm-hmm.
the song, um, I was recording was called Ancestral Clock, and in the lyrics of it, I go, "Words, words, words, that's Filipino," or something like that. And I remember I was working with this, white guy producer, and he was like, "Maybe you should change the lyrics, and maybe instead of 'That's Filipino,' you can change it to 'That's my people.'" And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Why?" And he said, "It makes it more universal." And I was like, "What?" And I remember just, like, being so conflicted, um, because we come from specific stories and specific histories, um, and in the end, I released that song with those lyrics. "That's my people." And, every time I heard that, I was like, "Oh," it kind of just was disheartening. And so I feel like still to this day, I have this inner battle of like, okay, for my lyrics, Like, how specific should I be about my history? Because, like, talking about, Filipino history is not really out there. So I'm like, "Okay, I could be that one voice that just tries to talk and be specific." But then I'm like, "Well, I also wanna relate to people. I want people to connect to me, and, I want them to feel like they can, like, project their own stories onto my songs." So there's, like, this battle, and I'm always kind of struggling with that because I think there's a power in specificity. Um And it's also like, okay, well, what would play on the radio? But then I'm like, there it's interesting. But yeah, I don't know. Uh I what I love about being a queer non-binary artist and like being Filipino is like I love subverting. Like I love rebelling. Like I love rebellion. It's so joyful. It's so fucking dope that we can do that. So I'm like, I like to I'm pretty snarky and sarcastic and smug. Like I'm like I have a lot of attitude and I love to work with that. I love being a jester. And so I like pissing people off for the right reason. Like if, I'm gonna punch up. I will do that. And I love that because, like it empowers me. It makes me feel, wow, like I have stuff in me, you know?
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, you just totally, said what I was thinking, that's a part of your power right there, being able to just do those things. And that's amazing, and when you think about it too, it's just like when you're being othered, it's kind of like in a vein of trying to make you lose your power, but then when you're othered and you show your power, you're just like you're just like a star. You're just like infinity. So it's just like it's
I
just
love
yeah,
that.
that's just amazing. Yes, that's just amazing. Um so I guess my next question would have been like, what have you learned about yourself as a queer non-binary Filipino artist? What has all of that taught you in terms of being a human being? How has it influenced you as a human being, and how has it influenced you in terms of like creating and interacting with others and creating spaces with others?
Mm, that's a big, great question. Well, I definitely strive to be honest, and I feel like, um, queer the queer people in my life, like the queer, trans, BIPOCs, queer adjacent, I don't know, like, not even just queer, trans, BIPOCs, but, like, people who have taught me about love, they're usually those folks. And, um,
I'm nodding my head in agreement. Yes.
yeah, and they're, like, really honest, and I'm like I talk to my friend, I'm like, "Wow, they're so honest." And I'm like, "Wow," like, they're just, like, saying it like it is, and I'm just, like I'm always, like, in awe sometimes of, like, I don't know, just like yeah, like, the analysis of my friends to be like, "Oh, yeah, that's fucked up because this, and this." And I was like, "Oh my god. Yeah." And, like,
Right. Yeah.
it's just revealing of, like, okay, what is real care? Like, what is real? I don't know, like
Yes. No, you do know, you're hitting it right. Yes, I totally agree with you about, especially about care. Um, like that is that wow, that is just so fundamental, and I feel like that is something that is on our minds all the time because it's just like we've experienced the bad, we've experienced so much ugliness already, so it's just kind of like this is a major question in our lives. It's just like, how do you experience care?
Yeah.
And then also just kinda like, um, is this person safe for me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
It's just like yeah, it's just
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
totally
I feel
yeah,
like
yeah,
I feel like the more I grow older, the more I'm realizing I don't have to be liked, not even by my own community. And that's like a hard one. I don't have to be liked by everyone, not even my own community. And like I'm thinking about like the Filipino community. Like I was in the Philippines last month and I was like, who am I as a Filipino Canadian in the Philippines? I was like, do my people like me? Like
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know, like, and I was like, one thing I'm thinking about a lot is, like, vibes. Like, if you vibe with
Yes,
people with someone, like, trust your gut instincts. Like,
right.
do you feel safe? Like you said, like, do you feel like you can just, like, chill, like
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
not have to prove yourself or, like, always be on, like,
right.
it's already so tiring and exhausting out there. And so
Yeah,
why fuck around? Why drain yourself? Like,
right.
yeah, so, um,
Yeah.
vibes. It's my
Yeah, no, no, it's
yeah,
true.
yeah,
Vibes are real. Energy is real. It took me a while to actually recognize that and acknowledge it, but it is true. And I think that is so important, knowing when someone aligns with you and appreciating that and valuing that and surrounding yourself with people who are aligning with you in that
yeah,
sense. You know what I
huge.
mean?
Yes, I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I hope I'll
So
continue to really have that internalized and, like, trust that my gut, like, go by my gut, and I feel like as an artist, like, that's my hope for myself is that I can really trust my gut because there's
right.
so many decisions we have to make as artists, and it's like, "Damn."
Yeah, no, it's pretty huge. It's like it's intense. So okay, thinking about your influences, I'm curious which artists you get compared to the most and whether you appreciate those comparisons. And then also, is there anyone who influences you that you think people would find surprising?
Oh, okay, wow, that's a great question. I laugh at that because I remember, when I released my first album, my friend was like, "Kim, you're described in, like, 3, um, articles as, like, being similar to Lauryn Hill." And, she's a fellow Sagittarius, and she, like, smirked a little, and I was like, "Yeah," and she's like, "That's interesting, hey?" And I was like, "Yeah." And, yeah, it's because it's, like, Lauryn Hill, Black woman, and, like, my music is, like my main inspiration is, like, Black African American hip hop, you know, the roots of it, and, um, yeah, definitely, like, a big conversation in the Asian community is just, like, how much of our inspiration comes from Black culture, like, comes from African American, like, hip hop steez. And problematizing that, like, being like, "Okay, how are we complicit in stuff? And how if we're part of the conversation, then how do we shift things towards, you know, liberation?" Because 'Cause I'm just like, but yeah, Lauryn Hill is, like, the main thing, and to be honest, I love Lauryn Hill, but then I was, like, also thinking about her song, That Thing, and I was, like, listening to it again, and I was like, is this kinda, like, slut shaming a little bit?" I don't
Maybe.
know, is that a hot take? But I was, like, listening to the lyrics, and um, I was like, "Oh, it kind of feels like that." there's a lyric in the first one. But anyways, Lauryn Hill is the first artist that I've actually ever shook hands with. Like, I waited for
Oh,
her
wow.
in the back of her last show here, the back of the venue, and it was when Trump was elected, actually,
Oh my god.
the first time, like, that time.
Yeah,
So that was,
yeah.
like, the biggest, that was quite a impactful day to, like, meet her the same day he was elected, and then she, like, shook my hand, and she was like a rock. Like, I was like, "Wow, this is a powerful woman," and she's so short. And I was like, "I can't believe this." But, she's a huge inspiration to me. Um, and then an artist that people wouldn't think that I'm influenced by is, I feel like I'm gonna regret say saying this, but maybe Avril Lavigne.
Why would you regret saying that?
Uh, c 'Cause she's like, little white pop punk girl.
Yeah, but she's just so edgy, though.
Yeah, she is. I do love her.
She's just so
She's so
edgy.
edgy. She's so great. I fucking
Like,
love her.
yeah. I mean, she got, like, shit for being being that edgy, and I don't know, I feel like she's a
Just
I
get
can
up,
see that.
so good. Like, she was formative. I feel
Yes.
like she was formative to me coming into my queerness. I was like
Really? Wow,
I was
yes.
like, "Cool, I'm a tomboy." You know?
Yes.
I was like I was like, "I have crushes on skater
Mm.
boys, and I want to be a skater boy."
Oh my god, that's amazing. Alright, anyone else that you wanna add to that?
Um, yeah, like, I don't know. I can't I would say, like I would say Alanis Morissette as
Mm,
well. Just, like, the yodel, like, she has a tiny yodel,
yes,
and,
yes.
I like that, and, I don't know, I feel like local drag artists also influence me. They've specifically in the past 3 years, I've been really into, like, clowning more on stage and just, like, being very expressive with,
Mhm.
I'll fake cry on stage or I'll dress up like a clown or, I'll be, like, hyper feminine, like, stuff like that just influenced my performance more so. Yeah.
So would you say you prefer performing over studio work?
I feel like I do more studio work than performing. I love performing. Um, I would say yes, I would say I do like performing more than studio work because studio work feels more technical and I I can zone in and be like, "Okay, how do you do this? Okay, just click, 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 click." I feel like so much of my music is click, 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 click. And I'm like, "This is not reality." Like, when I'm on stage, it's body. Like, people are looking at a body. They're not seeing this click, click. So when I'm producing, I try to imagine, "Okay, how would this work on the stage?" So I have a mirror beside my studio so that beside my computer, so that when I have a thing on loop, I can look in the mirror and, like, be like, "Okay, I wanna, like, do this with my body." So how would that influence how I write to this?
Right, right, it's all connected in a sense. Yeah, I love that. So how would you say your sound differs from other genre-related artists? How does your sound differ?
Oh, well, I like taking people through a journey, and I like, storytelling. I like, um I like found sounds. So I like white noise. I like, the sound of water. So, like, in my music, there's, like, elements of that playing in the background. Um I my music is political, so, uh, so there's a lot of just I don't know, it's just, um, poetry is a part of my work too, so I like moments of spoken word poetry.
And like I said before, one of the things that I really love about your work is that it can't be pigeonholed into any one particular genre because it's just kind of like you jump from one thing to the next and you do it really well. Um, so it's just like, and I find that really amazing.
Again, I love rebelling, like, I love rebellion. One of my favorite artists told me, "Whatever they tell you to do, Kim, do the opposite." And I was like, "Wow," like, that stayed with me ever since, and I like it when artists surprise you, when you're like, "Oh, this artist is gonna rap," and then they don't, and it's like they sing or they do something so off rhythm. I don't know, like, it can be like I love that. I love when artists are like, "You think I'm gonna do this, but I'm not. I'm going somewhere else," and, like, it's so cool. It's just so real to, like, our journeys. Like, we might turn a corner and be in a different place, and it's like, "Oh, that's where their head's at. Cool." Like, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's totally badass. So my next question is, what are your future plans? I know you came out with a video for Stop Business as Usual. Any other plans?
Mm. I'm currently working on an album, so
Yes.
I'm working on an
Yes.
album.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have new management as of, like, 2 months ago, and the good thing about this is the management is like, "Okay, let's plan for your album. You're gonna release it in this time." And I'm like, "Wow." Someone's, like, setting a deadline, and I'm like I'm like, "What?" And so I'm like, "Okay, if that's happening, then I have to have all the demos here. I have to have all this so yeah, I'm definitely in a planning stage, and I'm so used to working sporadically. So I really appreciate this, but I also feel this new feeling of pressure, which I'm just gonna do my best to work with. And so I'm working on that. And I'm also creating a it might be the same project. That's what my problem is with art sometimes is, like, I'm like, "Oh, I'm working on this project and that project," but maybe they're the same thing.
Or maybe you can combine them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure that out, but the 2 projects are, like there's, like, an album, and then there's, like, another piece that's, like, audio visual, and it's, like, more theatrical. Um, so I'm trying to figure that out because I don't know. Like, I have some poems, and I'm like, "Oh, that poem can be a rap, and it can be on the album." And then I'm like, "But am I trying to force it into this album? Or is it okay just being a poem and just, like, living?" So, trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. So, when do you think all of this is gonna come into fruition?
Yeah, so the sound audio visual piece is supposed to come in fruition in May. And then the album, the full length might be sometime next winter to, like, next summer. So anytime in there, and I was like, "How am I gonna make this happen?" But I feel really inspired by darkness, like shadows, and, I feel like it's really important right now, especially for artists and voices of dissent that are locked into, like, what is happening in this paradigm. I feel like now's the time to create. So I'm like, I feel that urgency and I'm like, "Oh my god." Like, it's just, like, all this energy. And so I'm trying to, like, be like, "Okay, give yourself time. Give yourself time. Protect your time as well, and, keep returning to what your gut is telling you. Like, just try to see that vision." So, that's where I'm at.
Yes. Well, I'm very excited, and I really hope when you do come out with these things that you come and share it with us on When We See Each Other.
Yeah. I would love to.
Um,
That would be really cool, like,
I
reconnect after the project's
yes,
over, and you can be
yes, I
like,
would love to discuss
"You
them.
said you do
Yes.
this, but it" like, "I thought it was gonna be
Oh
2
my god.
projects." Like,
Oh my
"Not at
god.
all."
Oh my god. Um, so, we're nearing the end of the interview, but I wanted to know, like, are there any BIPOC, queer, trans, non-binary artists you would like to shout out and recommend?
Yeah, actually, New York-based MC Bobby Sanchez is like, oh
Yes.
my god.
Yes. I'm so I am definitely gonna try and get Bobby on the show at some point.
Yes.
But yes, but I totally agree with you.
Yes. Huge.
Yes.
Like, I saw I met her for the first time in New York this January, and, she walked a runway and rapped, and, like
What?
yeah, and then I was like, "Oh my god, that's fucking Bobby Sanchez, like, this is real life?" And then and then, yeah, so that was, like, one of my highlights from this year, and she's incredible. Like, I'm so inspired by her. So, Bobby Sanchez and another artist that I really recommend is Backwash. Um,
Yes.
yeah,
I've heard of
yeah.
Backwash.
So,
Yes.
yeah, I've been listening to her album since this morning, and I'm like, she's incredible. She produces all her stuff. Like, yeah, and I remember, like, I screenshotted, a DM between me and her, um, just for motivation because she was the one that was like, "Fucking produce your own shit, Kim, because you know what sounds good to you." And I was like, "That is just it's just motivating because yeah, it's very much like DIY, like, do it yourself, like, you can do it, you know? So, um, Backwash, and then I would say another artist based in Vancouver is Leo D.E. Johnson, who's one of my good friends. Um, he's incredible. He's plays the guitar like such a badass, such a rock and roll artist. Yeah.
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 Wow. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. So I wanted to know, what books are you reading
I
currently?
love that question. Thanks for asking. Shoot, what book am I reading lately? Ah! Oh my god. Cuz usually I have so many books going at once, and right now I'm hella blanking, and I'm going to regret this. But I mean, one book that I did finish is called um The Vanishing Half by
The Vanishing
The
Half.
Vanishing
Okay.
Half by Britt Bennett.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll definitely check it out. Was it good?
It was good. It was like I usually don't read fiction, but once I get past, the hump and I start getting lost in the story, once I'm finished the book, I'm really sad that I'm no longer in that world because it becomes like, yeah, I just get so nostalgic. But that was the last book that I actually completed. So
All right. And then also, where can folks find you?
Yeah. So you can find me on um, Instagram at Kimmortal, the artist, all one word. My Bandcamp is kimmortal.bandcamp.com. And I'm on Spotify and all the other music platforms under Kimmortal. And then my website is kimmortalportal.com. And I have my drawings. My Instagram visual art page is at Kimmortal Draws.
Okay. Awesome. All right. I will definitely check out your art page. Because I didn't realize that you drew, and that's so amazing. And I totally forgot to ask
Yeah.
you, like, do you draw your images for your albums, or like, or is that something separate?
So I drew X Marks the Swirl, that album, and then my last album, Shoebox, that was what I was imagining, and then I put it through to a claymation animator, and then she made the art. And but yeah, I love drawing. Like if ever there's a way I can incorporate my visual art, I'm like, I love to do that. I don't spend too much time trying to figure out how to do that though, combine it all, but that's always a work. It's like how to just bring it all into one. Yeah.
Together, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I totally hear you. But anyway, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure meeting you and then talking to you. This was just amazing. This is what exactly what I needed today after a long day's work. So it was such a pleasure. Thank you so
Oh
much,
my god,
Kim.
thank you so much for inviting me to this podcast. It was really fun to talk to you. Thank you.
So that was Kimmortal. Aren't they just amazing? It was so electric talking with them. Their music is so spot on. Definitely check it out. It's available on all streaming platforms and Bandcamp. So we're gonna play one more song by Kim called Blue and Orange. Listen up.
I love you. Best friend, you held out your hand, reached from mine and pulled me in. Brought my hand to your lips, gave me a kiss. You don't even know how my heart has found its home. Your love envelops me, it takes me, and I can't say enough. In this moment, we have no words. All mouths crack open, we sigh. I cannot deny this miracle we touch, the miracle of us. Blue, orange, and blue, blue, orange. Oh, the sky tells stories of me and you. Complementary colors, oh, we count down the hours until we'll melt into each other. And we can talk and talk and say these words a million times, but nothing beats skin on skin. So I meet with you by the waters, I hold your head in my hands, even though a silence speaks love. And they can say what they say, 'cause they're anti-gay, but we will love anyway, yeah. Blue, orange, and blue, blue, orange. Oh, the sky tells stories of me and you. Complementary colors, oh, we count down the hours until we'll melt into each other.
Thanks for listening to When We See Each Other. I'm your host, Nikkiesha McLeod. This show is produced and edited by Jeremiah McVeigh. If you like what you hear in this show, please rate and review it in Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that allows that. And please follow us wherever you happen to listen to podcasts. Doing so helps us to expand our audience and is much appreciated. You can find more information about this show at stereoactivemedia.com/whenweseeeachother. And you can get in touch with us at stereoactivemedia@gmail.com. Also, follow us on Instagram and TikTok under the handle WWSEO Pod. Talk to you later.
This podcast is produced by Stereoactive Media.